Sue Ellen's going to introduce our host.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. We have again with us this month Genevieve Holmes, who we are so pleased to be leading our HMH session today. She has a wealth of knowledge. She is HMH representative and does a lot of their professional learning, but she also is a teacher using Into Reading in the classroom, just like you are. And so we are very excited to have her joining us today. And Genevieve, without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to you, please.
Your mic's off.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I am so happy to be back with you guys. And I'm going to first start the session, and I'm pulling up I've got another computer just so I can address some of those questions that you guys asked in the Google spreadsheet. Go ahead and pull those up with you guys specifically. I'm going to drop my Padlet once again into the chat. And then start sharing my screen because I've got so much to share with you guys. So thanks again for having me back. All right. So a couple of the questions you guys asked had to do with Rigby leveled libraries. With the Rigby leveled libraries, I uploaded 2 new resources onto my Padlet. One of them is the guided reading Lexile and guided reading level and Lexile correlation, along with the table of contents for the Rigby leveled readers, which gives you all the Rigby leveled readers in by their Lexile. I forgot to mention this in the previous one, but depending on your readers' levels, and let me zoom in, I have been known to go in and download the PDF of the Rigby leveled readers and then upload it into either their Google Classroom, especially if you need some lower or even higher reading materials for some of your students in your classroom. Like I've got 2 second graders who one of them's reading at a 4th grade level and the other one's reading a beginning reader. So I go and download the PDFs of the Rigby leveled readers and uploaded them into their Google Classroom so that they have their own little quote unquote book bag. And so those are 2 new resources. The participant guide to today's session, which will be covering the data and everything, is right here. And then I did a training yesterday about culturally responsive teaching, and so I have highlighted some of our culturally responsive texts per grade in this document. But other than that, for the most part, everything is the same as the last time that I showed you around our Padlet. For my 2nd grade teachers, one of the questions was in regards to daily slideshows. And so with the daily slideshows, I am hoping that come August, you guys will have daily slideshow that correlate with each lessons. I know in our older grades, I'm talking 6th through 12th, we've added a slideshow component to it. But for right now, K through 2nd has the daily show and teach slides in regards to the foundational skills. And one of the questions was making them Google friendly. If you go ahead and open one of them, and I'm going to do Be a Super Citizen, it's going to download into a PowerPoint. And this is my Google Slides. If you go to File and then Open, and then I'm just going to go into Upload and then just drag and drop that right there. Everything translates. So for any of our Microsoft stuff, like our Bridge and Grow worksheet or any of the files, everything transfers for everything transfers into the Google slide deck. So for grade 2nd, this is the daily show and teach slides for foundational skills. And on the interactive components, again, they work on the same way with the drag and drop. So you can see I just opened this one in daily show and teach, and then you guys have the option to again make them interactive by not changing the size of the thing, but just selecting them, the slide or the number or what the letters, and dragging them onto where you need to. So everything transfers pretty easily. For my grade 3 teachers, you do have interactive, and let me go ahead and change it to grade 3. For the read and respond journals, you do have them as an assignable resource. And one of the questions was in regards to can students start and stop it? And so after you assign the interactive journal, and I'm going to go to my student platform right here and go under assignments. You can see right here the read and respond interactive journal, the space flight simulator. When I go in to continue the assignment, and I think I answered just question number 1. It says, do you want to navigate? It says, who's the main character? And I had already written in Phil. What do you learn about Rachel? She's nice. Okay, so then if I close this out, it will actually be saved, and I could always continue the read and respond journal by going continue. And so there's Phil. I think they have to advance to the next question. Let's try it again. Because it did save it for the read and respond. Okay, so there, I wasn't prompted. So there, I ended up on question 2. So they could fill them out and always continue it from their assignment dashboard. And then for you guys as the teacher, if you go into my class and go in at assignments, you can see right here, getting the vote, read and respond. It says that one is ready to grade. And so you would just go in there and grade the assignment. And this is one that they've already filled out. So she's awesome. It was different. And so you would just pick out the rubrics. So that was a question in regards to the read and respond. Is there a question?
Yes, Genevieve. Are the slideshows available for 3rd grade also? Could you please review where the slideshows can be found?
Yes, absolutely. So right now we only have the daily show and teach slides for kindergarten through 2nd grade. And they are based off of the foundational skills. And so I am sorry to say right now they're not for 3rd grade, but we introduced slide decks for the high school grades. And so I am hoping that will trickle down for back to school 2021, 2022. And so I will encourage you guys, when you guys log on to Ed, and there's supposed to be a lot of stuff coming live January or June 1st, and then August 1st are our target dates. When you log on to Ed, any new updates, and I'm just going to go into literature. If there's a blue box like this that says what's new, definitely open up that blue box, because it's going to tell you exactly what's new, where to find it, and how to use it. For example, right here, we added our PowerPoint of our anchor charts. And so it'll tell you what is a resource, where to find it, and how to filter for it, and how to use it. And so come June 1st and then August 1st, a lot of updates will be made to Ed between now and then. And I'm not promising, because I don't know where it is on the roadmap, but we are not the first people to suggest, hey, can we get some slides for for the upper grades. Right now, K through 2 does have the foundational skills in the daily show and teach slides. So it will have this little presentation icon when it does show up as a resource for you guys. So it's a bittersweet answer to your questions. Yes, it's coming, hopefully. And then for grade 2, you do have it. Any other questions? And I was going to say another question for that came up was, in fact, in regards to articulation. So if you just articulation pictures, for grades K1, we have the actual physical videos. But for grade 2, we have articulation support in the form of pictures. And so if you just search by articulation, you can have the printable pictures. I was going to say for grades 3 through 5, you do not have that as a resource. So if you need that resource, just go and grab it from K to 2. But you do have those pictures. The Know It, Show It. It cannot be assigned online. It is solely a printable. In fact, this morning when I was looking to see if it was on the roadmap, as I was typing in some of the suggestions you guys added in the April HMH questions for Genevieve and Angie, I saw yesterday it was asked to be as an editable PDF at least, so that it could be uploaded. I'm trying to think if there's any other questions. Somebody says, is there a way to color code the components? I am super surprised that our tabs are not color coded, because everything else in this program is color coded. And so I will forward that response along. So those were all the questions that you guys did pose, and I'm trying to think and looking to see if there is another one. The preferred browser is Chrome, so I would encourage you guys to use it. For some of the books, it does take a minute for the pages to load up, and it doesn't matter if you have the book in waiting, it's still going to take, it's not like a YouTube video where it's going to all load. So let me go ahead and introduce you. We're going to be talking about Teacher's Corner and then leveraging data and reporting tools to accelerate growth. We're going to talk about all the Into Reading assessments, the data they produce, and how you could use that data to really effectively inform your instruction. The learning outcomes for today's session is we're going to look at the screening and diagnostic formative and summative assessments, really taking a deeper dive into the resources and how to analyze that data and selecting the appropriate assessments based on the needs. The Padlet I've already shared, and again, just like last time I worked with you guys, I don't believe in having that parking lot. Please, if you have a question, go ahead and post it in chat, and if you need me to slow down or review, please go ahead and post that as well. So let me introduce you guys to Teacher's Corner. I had a nice 3-minute video that walked you through everything, but sound difficulties got lost in translations. And so the first thing I'm going to encourage you guys to do, if you have a Facebook account, is to go like the Teacher's Corner from HMH page on Facebook. And I always feel very weird saying that, like a used car salesman, but this is my my Facebook account, and you could just search it by Teacher's Corner from HMH. On here we have everything. You can see Alexa is calling all K5 Into Reading teacher. Our team wants to know, do you use the Into Reading printable components digitally? Again, I think this is what spurred some of those questions about the Know It, Show It slides. Questions about the Into Reading curriculum, but we also have videos. And I was going to say we gave away books in February. And so you can feel free to post and interact. Noelle is one of our curriculum writers for Into literature or into reading, and so she goes in there and answers a lot of questions. And then for every holiday, they've been uploading different background screens you could have. So Teachers Corner from HMH on Facebook, it's a great resource to go in and like. Now, under your professional learning on your dashboard, when you go into your professional learning, that brings you to Teachers Corner. The first thing I'm going to talk to you about is live events. So we have everything from model lessons to your question answered. You do have to register for these. These are all free though. And so it's a lot of different things going on. I know in December I hosted one with, it was really advertised to teachers in New York City, but of course it was on everybody's platform. And so we had over 300 teachers log on, and again, they are just posting questions in chat, and I was just answering them like rapid fire. And then we had other coaches on there and a couple teachers answering questions as well. Then it's divided up into a couple different categories like getting started or break room. And so you can see there's 50 resources for getting started. And just like you do when looking at all the different resources for into reading, you're going to want to use your filters. And so with your filters, you could select by if you want more information about Add Your Friend in Learning or the reading growth measurement. You could just go in there and apply, and then also drill it down by topic. For each of the little topics you have, if it's an article, if it's a video, if it's interactive, and about how long it's going to take you to do each one. So we have the program support, we have break room. Break room doesn't necessarily have to do with the subject. It mostly has to do with self-care and self-awareness. And so obviously this is teacher to teacher. I know we had one about yoga with goats. And so there's a lot of different topics, and I would encourage you guys to go and either sign up for those live events, or if you're looking for an answer to any particular question, you can definitely go in here and search. The other option you have is the little question mark. And so you can view all health topics for ed, and this is obviously ed specific. And so on here we have tutorial videos, we have quick reference guides, information about creating customized assessments, or even how to read your data. And so that's what we have for Teachers Corner for teachers. And then as far as students are concerned, they have their own little help platform. So under Welcome Student, you have the For Families tab, and this is our family room. In our family room, we have different things for getting started, and then also resources that are program specific. And so again, most people don't go to that tab for the Welcome Teachers, so I would definitely encourage you guys to show that there is a family room component. Does anyone have any questions about the Teachers Corner before I move into talking about assessments? All right. So I want you to think, how does assessment data currently inform your instruction? And consider the questions at the bottom. We know progress monitoring, when implemented correctly, has been proven to have many benefits, obviously for students, but also for teachers. And according to the National Center on Student Progress Monitoring, consistent and persistent progress monitoring really helps your students learn more quickly, because they are receiving that individualized, adaptive, differentiated instruction. It also supports you in making a lot more informed instructional decisions, and oftentimes is going to provide you the evidence of student progress to hold students accountable for their learning. So the power of progress monitoring is in providing that meaningful performance data while students are still learning, so that you're able to adjust your own instruction. We have formative and summative assessments, and when you couple those with actionable feedback and working together with your students, you can truly meet the goals. Into Reading is built on the promise of students achieving these targeted outcomes. It does this through meaningful use of data and critical feedback loops for just-in-time instruction at each student's level. And it's done so without the need to spend hours grouping students and even planning lessons. So on the left side of the image, you're going to see the different Into Reading assessments to collect data on your students' performance, like the selection quizzes, like the reading growth measure, and weekly assessments and module assessments. And so when students complete these assessments online, Ed collects this data and spits you out a plethora of information in regards to student growth. And so we're going to be looking at these. So to start off, we're going to look at the different types of assessments within Ed. I'm going to start with the screening assessments. You're going to administer at the beginning of the school year to really provide those preliminary information about your students' performance. You have different diagnostic assessments to use as a follow-up for students who kind of score below your expectations on the screening assessments. And notice that in addition to the intervention assessments, the guided reading benchmark assessment and the HMH growth measure are listed. So you're going to administer these assessments, again, all at the beginning of the year to really establish that baseline data like the guided reading levels or the Lexile levels. Next are our formative assessments, which are going to provide that ongoing feedback on how students are meeting the learning objectives. And you're going to use this to inform your daily instruction. And we're going to get into these specific formative assessments in a little bit. Finally, we have summative assessments like the module assessments to assess mastery of skills taught throughout the module. So beginning in second grade, you guys have access to the reading growth measure. Assessments play a key role in providing you with the data you need to really plan and deliver instruction. And the reading growth assessment is one of those assessments. And so this is a benchmark assessment for grades 2nd through actually 12th grade that sheds light on each student's academic progress in reading and language arts comprehension. The growth measure is this computer adaptive test of up to 35 questions. How I explain it to my students as they prepare to take it, like, okay, imagine a highway and you decide to get off the exit, and that's how you're going to answer one question, and then you're going to make a left-hand turn, and that's how you answer another question, and then you're going to make a right-hand turn. So every single question is going to take you down a different path. And really note, the chances of them having the same two questions during the growth measure is very slim to none. The difficulty of the questions that follow are going to be dependent upon if they answer that question correctly or incorrectly. The growth measure is accessible via Ed, and you're going to need to assign it to your students, and it has 3 kind of open assignment windows. So when you guys log on to Ed, it's going to tell you, hey, now it's the time to assign your students. It's either at the beginning of the year, the middle of the year, and the end of the year. So you're going to administer it 3 times during the school year to measure that proficiency and growth. And it does take less than 45 minutes. So your first growth measure assessment is going to provide you the initial data to which you're going to compare all future results. So when students finish the assessment and it updates live, you're going to get that instant score, and you'll be able to view detailed information about each student's performance on the growth measure. So this is the class growth report. This report shows the distribution of scores across the different performance levels. So you've got class domain performance, and it changes in each student's score between tests to view changes over time. So I'm going to go ahead and go on to my Ed platform and my class, data and reports, select reading language arts, and go to growth report. So you can see right here, I've had one student take this assessment and he is above level. As I scroll down, it's going to give me the domain performance level. And what I love about all of our charts and tables that we have you have a little button that says, what's this, if you need more information about it. Again, the growth measure gives you a bunch of different data. And so it's student number 7. He spent 18 minutes on it. And as you scroll through, it's going to show projected growth and everything. Go ahead and close that out. One of the things is going to show you the change in performance from the previous test. And so it's going to show and show also expected growth. Does anyone have any questions about the growth measure? Again, it's a simple test that spits out a lot of data for you. All right, so another option you guys have is the guided reading benchmark assessments. This is one of the resources that I've used in kindergarten through 2nd grade. I've used it once or twice in the upper grades, and I'm gonna show you. If you go to your assessment and then obviously filter it out by component, you're gonna have the introduction on how to do it. But then I'm going to open up level J, and it takes you through it, the 5 different steps. So you're going to provide the overview, then you're going to assess that oral reading, have the students retell you the story, finish reading, and then complete the written test. The retell is one of, obviously, we can't capture that on the growth assessment. And so I give this assessment to obviously a variety of students. So, and it walks you through everything. Next, we're going to look at some of the different assessments that are available with the formative assessment. So we're going to administer these to monitor your student learning and then adjust instruction. So throughout the teacher's guide, you have the correct and redirect. You can note which students require the most support in these activities and then follow up with additional instruction to review during small group instruction. You have selection quizzes. These are going to be administered after the first read of the selection to measure comprehension of the MyBook selection. These are short 5 multiple choice question assessments that Ed automatically grades once students complete it. And in fact, I was sharing with the K1, for some of these assessments, I honestly just project it up on the board and I say, okay, everyone take out a sheet of paper or on the sticky note in front of you, write down 1 through 5 and just write 1A, 2B, 3C, and so forth. It's a very informal assessment, and again, I do it together sometimes as a whole class so that anxiety is taken out of it. You have also the weekly assessments. These are, they have 10 to 15 questions depending on the grade level, and they measure the foundational skills, comprehension, and grammar. So you're going to read the week at a glance page, kind of review the skills measured in the weekly assessment. Then you have the leveled reader quizzes. Again, these are 5 multiple choice items to measure comprehension of those leveled readers. During the second part of the year, no leveled reader is read without either one of 3 tasks done. Those 3 tasks involve either doing the quiz or doing, I've got questions that I've taken out of the Take and Teach lessons from the Rigby leveled readers, and I've assembled them in a document and they have to answer those, or a graphic organizer. Now, another assessment that K1 talked about was if you go into your teacher's guide and on the 5th day of any lesson, so I'm going to go table of contents, week 1. So it's going to be lessons 5, 10, and 15. You have the phonological awareness assessments, and K1 is using these, and correct me if I'm wrong, K1 is using these as a type of assessments and just to measure their phonological awareness. And so again, let me go ahead and go in second grade. I just showed you guys where they are. And then in third grade, again, highlight, go to your teacher's guide. So this isn't listed as one of the formal assessments, but they are using it as an assessment. And so I think it's for second grade and up. I'm trying to think. Yeah, or for my second grade. Now, another thing you guys have access to are the performance tasks. Students here have the opportunity to demonstrate their knowledge by completing fun and engaging performance tasks, such as like making an award, writing a story, or even an informative article. The welcome to the module section of the teacher's guide includes that performance task. And I also have the performance task listed under the connections document on my Padlet. Teachers of grades 3 through 6 also have the option to assign the performance task on Ed by clicking on that module writing task button. So I was actually in grade 2 right here. So you would go in, grade 3 through 6. You could assign it directly from the Ed platform. So second grade, you can't. Here you can see a summary of each task as well as the different skills, rubrics, and standards associated with the task. So you can go into it and view it as part of my. So you have the inquiry and research project as well. So again, this is one of those things that at the beginning of the year when we talk about the getting started, the performance task is a little overwhelming along with the end of module projects to get it. All right, let's go ahead and move into our summative assessments. Remember, we're going to administer these to measure growth over the course of the module, semester, or the year. Module assessments offer summative data about learning, and you're going to assess them after the module. You're going to administer these to measure the student's proficiency in the critical skills. So the HMH reading or growth measure is that interim summative assessment as we previously discussed. So before I get in how to look at the data, let me visit the chat. Are there any questions in regards to any of these assessments and where to find them? And Sue Ellen and Sharon, feel free to stop me if I miss something. Okay. All right. So I'm actually going to go into Ed for the most part for the rest of the presentation. There's several different ways to find assessments. And so you could do so by highlighting the chapter or the module, go into view resources, and then instructional purpose. Just filter it out by assessment. And here you're going to find all the assessments having to do with the module. You could even do so by going into the individual lessons. Or we also have, as you scroll down, a whole tab just dedicated to assessments. So once you find and select the assessment, you could assign it to the student, or you could obviously open it up, and we have a lot of those in printable. When you assign it to a student, and actually I'm going to pull up the Rigby leveled, the readers, leveled reader quizzes. I think I shared with you guys on Sunday of every week, I've got my class list of the class that I'm currently working with, and I go through and I assign them Rigby leveled readers. On every Friday, the quiz opens for them if they choose that option. And so for the leveled quizzes, I'm going to say, let me go into my Discover tab because I don't see them as the, I was gonna say for grade kindergarten, I had them right there. I wonder if there's a glitch right now. Go into assessments. All right, so my leveled reader quizzes right now, they're only showing available as the PDFs. You can assign them online and directly into the student's platform. And so if you choose to do so, and let me just find another digital assessment. Oh, there we go, the online assessments, leveled readers. I'm like, why can it pull them up? So for example, let's say that today was Friday. On Sunday night, I go ahead and assign it for that it opens on Friday and it closes on Friday. By changing the due date and assigning it, that drops it directly on the student's platform. So when students log in on their dashboard, let me refresh. You can see right now it says due today and overdue. Saving Scruffy shows up directly on their dashboard. And then that way they have that reminder and they can open it up directly from the dashboard so that they don't have to go look for the information. So you have the option to drop it directly onto their dashboard by just changing the due date. Let's see. Other options you guys have, I know I discussed about creating groups, and actually when you're looking at the different assessment reports within Ed, so we're going to go into data and reports, select reading and language arts. When you go into different assessment reports, when you highlight any one of the assessments that you have assigned, and so I'm gonna pull up what Thomas Edison. There's a couple things that I want to highlight. First is this recommended groups. So any assessment you take online, the recommended groups will always pop up, and Ed will place your students in a group. I know last Tuesday we had an assessment and a module assessment, and so what we did on Wednesday, we hit the recommended groups. On Thursday, I pulled some students out to kind of revisit some of the things that they missed. So it'll give you the item analysis of the most commonly missed questions. Again, going over any assessment or any standards that I need to cover will also show up. And I'm going to show you the resources to address specific standards. So as you scroll down the report, you see how long they took. Again, the standards, the possible points, and the score. This assessment proficiency right here lets you know in regards to where the student is and how they measure up to the assessment going into. So again, you have the option to have the recommended groups. You could also export the data. I know for some of my teachers who use PowerSchool and Clever, they export the data to import it in for grading purposes. At a glance right here, this is going to be based off of all this assessment proficiency. So I'm only working with one student on this particular sign-in. And so you can see right here what he is below. And then as far as the individual assessments, you can see the snapshot there as well. So selecting and assigning, when you go to reports, you have the assessment report. The standards report will pull up the report based off of Virginia standards, so you can see which ones you might need to address. The growth report is going to be your growth measure report, and then the practice report, I'll be honest with you, I don't necessarily use that much. So the standards report, unlike assessment report, shows results for single assessments across standards. So one of the resources after you go into the standards report and you identify standards that need to be addressed, you're going to go into your Bridge and Grow resource tab under your Discover, and that's going to open up an Excel spreadsheet. So Bridge and Grow. This Bridge and Grow Pathways Excel spreadsheet, and I've already opened it up. You could filter it out by grade and then by standard. So if you knew you had to address, I'm trying to think, third grade and any particular standard, you would highlight the standard. And as we go across the table, it's going to tell you the resource title and the component to get through to address that specific standard. So you'll see the anchor charts, the read and respond journals. I have a lot of the tabletop mini lessons. So you are definitely not short of resources to support and build a bridge to grow them to that standard. Another way you could view by standards is when you go to your Discover tab, view content by standards, and for ease, I'm just going to pick Indiana right now. Yours is only linked to Virginia. You would highlight the standards, and you can see for this particular standards, we have over 282, well, we have 282 resources, again, that you could utilize to address that particular standard. So as you're reviewing the student data, and if you take all the assessments in ED, you could kind of identify the strengths and weaknesses. You could look at maybe the probable cause for the weakness, and then what learning needs do you need to target. After you identify those different needs, let's look at the actual support that we have. I know right now my students' areas of support, so you're ready to find the different resources to provide that targeted instruction. So in this case, after I've looked at my students' data, I see that we needed some work with author's purpose. And so going into it, you've got the tabletop mini lessons, you've got the leveled readers with the Take and Teach lesson, and then you've got the graphic organizers. So looking at your options for differentiating based on data, you can group your students and then go find those resources to target their needs. Into Reading provides many options for differentiation, for individualization. And so since you use that online assessment, you can take advantage of the grouping features on ED or even that standards reports to easily pull your students out and address either standards or commonly missed questions. Some of the options to use are those Rigby leveled readers. There's 90 titles for each grade level. And again, I have been known to go in and download those PDFs so I could really meet all the needs of my individual readers. You have your tabletop mini lessons for reading. This is another great resource to support that small group instruction, and the Rigby level readers are the are to be used for that. Anchor charts and graphic organizers really support your students' learning. And then there's teacher-facing pages, which provide suggestions for differentiation. You have your EL support. For those students that require English language support beyond the call-outs in the teacher's guide, go ahead and use those tabletop mini lessons for English language support. Start Right readers are those high-quality decodable texts. I was going to say you have 6 volumes for 2nd grade. So things to consider is how will you group your students? What area of instructions will you target? What Into Reading resources will you use? And then when and how will you use? I know I shared with you that there's definitely not a shortage of resources Into Reading. It's just a matter of finding the ones that will best support your students. Again, I pointed out you go into ED to access more help. And in there you have the Pathway to Success with ED. So scroll down to the teacher page, and then you're going to see different topics to support you to not only assign those assessments, create customized assessment, And then you could even assign it through the Ed platform. So under the Create tab, if you go to your assessments, you can create an assessment directly from here. So I told you guys that we just finished a module test last week. Some of my students didn't do so great. So on Tuesday, we took the test. On Wednesday, I sorted out the groups. And then on Friday, they had the option to retake the test for a score of 80. So it was on module 4. I'm going to go ahead. This was the module assessment. And I'm only going to add like 4 questions from the module assessment since they've already taken this exact assessment. But I've looked at the most commonly missed questions. And then I'm going to go into the individual selection quizzes and add different questions from all across the different weeks and lessons. Okay, so this is the weekly assessment. I'm going to add questions from here. And then you have the options to create your own questions. And so I'm going to go into my items and I'm going to add what is Pinky from Pinky and the Brain and what is Dr. Seuss's first name, and that gives me 10 questions. So I'm going to hit save and done. And then I've got the option to assign it directly from here. And so remember, I made of recommended groups, and based off of my assessment, I'm going to assign it to group 3 because I know those are my kids who didn't do so well. And so, again, I'm going to change the due date so that it opens up on their screen on that Friday so they don't have to go looking for it, and I'm going to assign it. And so the rule is in our classroom, they always have the option to go in and look at any assessment, to go in and retake assessments if they wanted to. So we always offer that. All right, I just given you a lot of data in regards to assessments and then using the data that it spits out. I know in the last class we covered a little bit about over assessing. And so definitely with some of the assessments like the selection quizzes, that whenever you change the environment and how you present it, it kind of changes the format of the test. I mean, there's so much data that we get from assessing, but we also don't want to over assess. So there's that really fine line. And I'm trying to think, Sue Ellen or Sharon, what did we miss?
Well, I'm glad you brought that back up because the first group was asking, what are county expectations,
That's
particularly
right.
with regard to the guided reading benchmark assessments. And our expectations are that you are benchmarking and learning the reading levels as well as all the information included about your students so that you can make informed decisions in your planning and instruction and how you might intervene as necessary and appropriate. We are not saying what type of benchmark assessment you need to use because schools have different ones. Obviously, they've purchased before we adopted HMH. It's important to have a conversation with your administrators and make sure you're on the same page. But what we would encourage you to do is compare. If you're using Jan's new assessment program or DRA or Fonis and Pinnell, what have you, compare to what HMH is offering. What might be important to consider with regard to how long it takes to administer and the information that you're getting from that. And that's what we mean by not over-assessing too, like using multiple things that give you the same information. Albeit, we know that PALS is something that we are required to give, and some of these assessments within HMH also give that same information. So maybe you decide to use some of those at different times. That would be important information for you to have.
Absolutely. And I mean, there's a lot of information to take in. One of the things I would encourage you guys to do is that first week of school, come when everyone returns in the fall, is have a class where you guys take them through Ed. I know last March, I was up in New York, and I walked my groups of first graders through how to navigate ed. And so I think it's really important that you walk your students through the navigation of ed and walk them through their dashboards, because it does get confusing whenever they're selecting different tabs. But you guys with second and third, they're at a level where they can start comprehending. And so the amount of information that ed gathers for you based off of the assignable assessments via ed really saves a lot of time when it comes to diving deep into the data. So I would definitely encourage you guys to put on your map, hey, when you start introducing, Into Reading is made for that first day of school, right? Go ahead and start doing that with as soon as the students kick in. But really that second and third week, introduce them to the ed platform and walk them through it.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Genevieve shared the follow-up participation guide as well. I would recommend sitting down with your teams, because what it has in is a few questions on why monitoring progress, but then it also talks about the assessment types. It goes through the different ones that she mentioned here today, but really thinking about why you're using it. And I think that'll give you a good understanding of how many assessments you're using, why you're using it, and then really, are you using it to change instruction in the classroom? Because if we're not using it to change instruction, then it's really meaningless. But it really gives you a breakdown of just really looking closely at the assessments that you're giving. Okay, so I do recommend looking at that, and we can do that in team meetings as well if you'd like.
Absolutely. Well, and I know with one group in Ohio, they were looking less for assessments and more for grades. They were like, we need stuff to give them hardcore grades for. And we had actually that same conversation that you just brought up, Sharon. It's like, well, if you're not going to use the assessments, I mean, those are quote unquote just grade stuff you could throw in your book, but the information it spits out for you, really, you're doing a disservice to your students by not using some of that data to really individualize the learning. And I mean, I remember starting teaching in 2000, and even thinking back to whenever I was in school, it was really a cookie cutter, one size fits all type of education. And we have morphed into meeting the needs of each individual student, which has definitely put a lot more on us as teachers. But it's proving better results for the students at the end of the day. So, and at the end of the day, we're here to grow them physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, all the different capsules, right? To better the kids. All right, we have about 5 minutes left. I know you guys did type in the questions, and I think I try to address them per grade. Let me know what other questions you guys have. I was going to say leveraging data and reporting tools to accelerate growth is definitely not as fun as looking at all the different resources and like a show and tell feature. But it was definitely a very important topic to address.
Spellin, do you want to drop the survey in the chat? There you go. Look at that. She's so quick.
I was going to say, did you also drop the Google link to that professional learning guide if they didn't go grab it off the Padlet? Yep. I know we did for K1.
I have not dropped that in yet.
So, but again, please ask questions if you guys need help with anything. I want you guys to become proficient pros at Into Reading, because it really is this program that has so many resources, but it's just a matter of navigating and then picking and choosing what you're going to teach and really, have or be able to individualize and differentiate the learning for each student. So one of the things I noticed, I was a push-in sub for 2 weeks ago, and we were wrapping up a book, and I went and revisited the essential question, and this was with a group of 4th graders, and they're like, "What's the essential question?" And I was like, "No." But it's so much information that I just went up to the teacher. I was like, "Remember, you have the essential question to revisit. You have the knowledge maps. You have so many resources." And she's like, "I totally forgot about revisiting the essential question after each piece, but it really ties the whole unit or the whole module together."
Mhm.
So just little reminders like that go a long way, especially with having the students make sense of the why they're reading what they're reading.
Mhm.
Genevieve, just to clarify, did you ask me to drop in the Padlet link or something else?
The participant guide.
Participation guide?
Yep,
But
Get
it's
it?
also on the
it is on the Padlet. Yeah.
Mhm. But I will do that as well.
yeah, if you all could complete the form, we do get back to you personally with your answers to your questions. And also we'll sometimes send out things just to the group. So make sure you're filling out that survey form. We consult with Genevieve and we get answers that way. And then we also just get the answers for you quickly. And then we'll get those out to you as quick as possible. There's some that still haven't been answered, but we'll get those out to you. We're still working on a few of them, but we did get a lot of questions, which was really good because we see where our need is. And hopefully we get those answers to you. So next year we'll even start in a better place when we're back 5 days a week.
Woohoo!
I think that's it for now, Genevieve. Anything else?
Perfect. Nope, that's it. Thank you guys so much.